Star Citizen's fight for Pyro continues in Phase 2, and you get to decide the fate of the lawless system. 3 factions to choose from, heavy conflict, and even higher stakes this time around. In this video we're breaking down Phase 2 and its new missions. The same rules apply as last time here. You can bring friends to assist you with any of these missions, but only the person who grabs the mission will receive the mission's markers, as well as the final payout for the current mission. And you will once more have to complete any mix of 6 missions for your selected faction to complete Phase 2. And your progress is still tracked within the Mobiglass via the Journal tab. You should see a listing describing your chosen faction. I won't be covering the currently announced rewards discussed in Part 1 here. Please check out the first video if you'd like more information regarding those details. As of the moment, it's unclear if there'll be a Phase 3 of this event, given the rewards are already being distributed at the end of this phase. Before we proceed any further into the direct mission details, I will warn, either by design or a result of bugs or conflicting features, many of the missions are experiencing a surplus of enemies, both ground and ship, hanging around the locations. As a result, the missions are much more difficult this time around, and you will want to set your spawn to the closest possible location to cut down on any potential travel time. Another detail that's different this time around is many of the jumps between locations will exceed 50 GM in distance, and this will eat a lot of time. But going forward into this overview, I will provide any information I can in helping avoid bugs during these missions, but the best you can do is mitigating the damage from them. There is a pretty severe bug with the elevators in the game currently. If you can't escape a landing zone or a station, try jumping servers by changing server region and see if you can escape that way. I personally had the least amount of issues around Obituary. Worst case, if you start running into issues, I would advise setting your primary spawn to that location. And you will want to weigh any consideration of changing your spawn location, and I would advise to heavily avoid Checkmate, as it seemed to be having more issues than any other location. But now let's get into the missions. First up, we'll be covering Citizens of Prosperity. The Citizens of Prosperity will have you doing ground combat scenarios and defending data running ships this time around. First up is the Retake Pyro Outpost mission. These are essentially the outpost missions that were present for headhunters and frontier fighters during Phase 1. Expect to have to fight human and Copian NPCs. If the enemies do not spawn in, or you're unable to find all of the NPCs in the general proximity of the location, simply move on to the next and abandon the bugged mission. To complete this mission, you'll essentially just need FPS gear and a combat-capable ship. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. And the second mission type will have you defending CFP server ships. Citizens for Prosperity have secured vital information they need to transmit to the Advocacy, but their star runners with the data are under threat of being destroyed by the enemy. This mission is practically the wave defense missions from Save Stanton, where you had to defend a ship from being destroyed by several waves of incoming enemies. It's relatively straightforward, just go in with a fighter or another form of combat ship like a Corsair and you should be fine. But the more firepower, the better. Key thing to note here is the mission is experiencing issues with populating the enemy ships. If they do not spawn within a few minutes, abandon the mission and go on to the next one. Missions issued by the Citizens of Prosperity this time around will be paying 240k and 625k per run. It seems the Citizens for Prosperity are making up for the mediocre payment in the first phase. Next, I'll be covering the Headhunters. The Headhunters will have you spending the majority of your time during Phase 2 carrying out violent acts once more against frontier fighters, but this time the majority of the action is going to happen inside asteroid bases or around ground outposts. Also, it appears their missions pay a flat 273k per mission. Both of the following mission types can have ships defending the locations, but it seems very inconsistent if they were present or not. So come prepared for the worst. Their first mission type will have you sabotaging frontier fighter outposts. These missions have you sabotaging supplies at frontier fighter bases. These are relatively straightforward and what I would advise trying to complete, unless the stability of the next mission type improves. These will have you simply flying down to a ground location and destroying vehicles and other supplies that are marked with markers on the ground. These can take a moment to spawn in once you arrive, so give it a bit of time. I will note these will fail to work more times than not from my experience, but they are definitely the easiest option for completing the Headhunters chain this time around. The biggest issue with these is they can rapidly become a time sink, given the travel distances involved at times. And the second mission type will have you sabotaging frontier fighters' asteroid bases. These missions practically just have you entering a standard asteroid base and destroying generators, while dealing with a lot of NPCs. It's just a variant of the normal asteroid base missions. This sounds simple and like it should be straightforward, but I experienced nothing but issues trying to complete these. This was a result seemingly due to bugs or unintended NPC behavior. Either I was met with 8+ ships externally on approach to the base that were often Cutlass Black size or larger, and if I made it past that, I often had issues with spawn closets inside the base spitting out 15+ NPCs repeatedly. You would clear an area and feel relatively safe, and a large wave of enemies would come through out of nowhere. After having this a few times, I figured out they were coming from the spawn closets, but the enemy count seemed extremely excessive, especially for a mission chain you can't share. And to make matters worse, it was highly unpredictable when it would do this. If you are approaching these missions solo, just avoid this one entirely and do the first type. And for the final faction, the Frontier Fighters, this time around they will have you continue to work towards the purge of Pyro, but through indirect support of their operations. You'll practically be doing the opposite side of the Citizens for Prosperity missions. Their first mission type is destroy CFP servers. Citizens of Prosperity have found crucial information about Frontier Fighters' operations to clean up Pyro, and the Frontier Fighters need you to destroy their data servers. This results in you essentially doing the generator missions from the Headhunter missions, but with the generators replaced with servers. If you experience issues with excessive ship presence or ground units as previously described, I would simply move on to the second mission type. The second mission type will have you destroying CFP server ships. The Citizens of Prosperity are trying to transmit information that jeopardizes Frontier Fighter operations. You have to stop that data relay at all costs. You'll have to fight your way to and destroy a ship carrying the data. This is essentially the reverse of the Defend CFP server ship mission. Make sure you bring a military ship, otherwise you could have issues. I will note, this mission, as well as the CFP equivalent, are both prone to having PvP encounters, so you definitely want to come prepared. The good news is here I've not heard of any major bugs impacting this mission, but if the mission doesn't clear on the destruction of the main target, or the target doesn't spawn, abandon the mission and move on. The Frontier Fighters will be paying $336k and $455k respectively for their missions this time around. I wish you the best of luck in completing Phase 2 to earn those rewards, but if you are patient and persevere, you should be successful in doing so. Upon the completion of these mission chains, you will receive the Ripper SMG at minimum, and a special skin set based on your chosen faction if you completed Save Stanton as well. This is covered in greater detail in part 1 of this video series. Drop a comment below and let me know about your experience with these missions. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more Star Citizen updates, and ring that bell so you don't miss a thing. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.